You know, with a title like The Tragedy, I'm sure everything's gonna be just fine. Hello interwebs and welcome to my review of Star Wars The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 6, Chapter 14, The Tragedy. Yes, as I alluded to in my little opening joke, this episode was filled with heartbreak and tragedy, so we're going to be delving into all of that. So if you have not seen the episode yet, just know I'm going to be delving into spoilers right at the top because this episode is rife with truly amazing spoilers from top to bottom. I have to say, this episode of The Mandalorian might be my favorite episode of the show, period. I really thought that last episode was going to be my favorite episode of The Mandalorian, considering that Ahsoka Tano, one of my favorite characters, in fact, my favorite character in all of Star Wars, was appearing in it. My feelings about Rosario Dawson aside, which I will be addressing in a video that will be coming out later today. I'll be talking a little bit more about my feelings on Rosario Dawson if you want to know a little bit more about that situation and my feelings on it. But my thoughts on Rosario Dawson aside, I thought last episode was excellent and really, really great, but I didn't exceed expectations in any way. This episode exceeded every expectation that I have had for this show. It had amazing action. It had fantastic payoff to stuff that has been building throughout the season. It had tantalizing hints of things going forward. It had recurring elements coming back in, doing that world-building element that The Mandalorian has always done so excellently well, weaving that into the story. It had character moments that really actually hit me hard, both small, subtle character beats and then sort of the larger, grander ones, as the title implies with The Tragedy. Just, this is what I have always wanted The Mandalorian to be. And I really feel like, while I don't always enjoy the little pieces of world building that it does to get to these points, when The Mandalorian really hits these marks where it really just says, all right, all the stuff that you've been watching has been building towards these types of episodes, it just absolutely works. I wish they were able to even that out throughout the entire series, but when it hits these moments, it does so brilliantly, and I really appreciate the effort that goes into having these wonderful payoff episodes like this one in an episode that I really wasn't expecting to be much of anything. I really didn't expect anything to happen this episode. I thought it was going to be another little fetch quest, but they really did such a great job here. Let's dive into the nitty gritty of it, because I just have a lot to say. First things first, the opening sequence with the Mandalorian sort of playing catch with the child, with the little ball, and sort of bringing back that ball element that we've seen all the way back since season 1. It was a very sweet moment, sort of, again, paying off this characterization of the Mandalorian as a parent. And the rest of the scene also played out really well as well, where the Mandalorian's like, I'm going to take you to your people, I need to, give you to this Jedi and sort of let you go. And we know it's kind of building towards this thing, is he sort of says oh, I can't train you, I need to have you find your home. And we all know that this is going to, end wherever the show eventually ends, is their home is each other. The child isn't, Grogu, I should say, isn't going off to be with a Jedi. That's going to be a bad idea, I'm sure, in the end, as is evidenced by the end of this episode. But really, Grogu just needs to be with Mandalorian. So I like that sort of seeding of that stuff there. It's a little bit on the nose, because now I can clearly see where the arc of this is going. So it's not exactly the subtlest of character arcs, but I think it's effectively done for what it is. It's not exactly super exciting or anything radically new, but I think it's effectively done here and really tugs at the heartstrings and really shows the development of their relationship here. Then we get Mandalorian jetpacking down to the planet. I thought that was a really cool visual, just seeing Mando jetpacking down and sort of paying off that jetpack bit. The cool part where the child goes and gets set on the little the rock thing was kind of funny. He's kind of playing that joke of oh, the Jedi stuff is really weird and not all that special. Of do you just sit here or do we poke it? What do we do? And then all of a sudden the child's got this whole magic wall thing going on around him. That was really cool, sort of playing with what we know about the Jedi and how people view the Jedi within this world. But then, the part that was completely unexpected, but we knew was going to be coming at some point this season, Boba Fett turns up. Yes, the actor who played Jango Fett and all of the clones way back in the prequel series, and also appeared earlier this season, came in. I forget the actor's name, but I always loved him whenever he played Jango Fett. As much as I have problems with the prequel Star Wars movies, I really enjoy him in that role, and he does not disappoint here. There's a brilliant standoff between him and the Mandalorian, and we can clearly see that tense sort of stuff. Again, sort of playing up the Mandalorian, our Mando, show as like this kind of like a little bit of a religious nut. It's like, you can't have that armor. It's not yours. You don't. And obviously we know Boba Fett. It's like, clearly we know that is his armor. He deserves that armor. I do find it weird that they don't really address how they kind of like overridingly hint towards it, but they don't really address how Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc pit. I know there's explanations in the Legends versions of the books, but it is kind of funny that they don't like actually say anything. I mean, I don't expect Boba Fett to like sit and just give me an exposition dump. He's not exactly a talky type of character, but you know, it would have been somewhat interesting to kind of hear that. But I'm sure some Star Wars book will canonize that element of his history at some point in the future. But this standoff was absolutely fantastic. I really adored seeing it here. And then the bringing in of Ming-Na Wen. As much as I didn't love the original episode that Ming-Na Wen appeared in season 1, and I do believe she really appeared to die, so I like that they like paid that off, that she's like a sort of cyborg sort of character a la Anakin and Luke, so that there's precedence there for her being like part cyborg as she shows. As much as I didn't like that episode, I always love Ming-Na Wen, the actress. She is absolutely wonderful. I particularly loved her in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. With a few episodes of that show that I saw. I also loved her in Stargate Universe, for those who watch that show. No one ever really talks about or remembers Stargate Universe, but I do. I really love Stargate Universe, and Ming-Na Wen was the first time I encountered her was in there, other than obviously Mulan, the animated version. And you know, I've always liked her, so I'm glad that she gets to come back and actually be in a good episode for a change. And so that standoff was absolutely fantastic. Then we get the Empire like troopers coming down and landing, and this epic fight scene. First thing I want to say about this, and throughout the whole episode, is the music was spot on. I absolutely adored the music going on here, especially during this fight sequence in particular. Also at the end, when we see this sort of Empire stuff, there was sort of creepy, ethereal music vibes. Wonderful music. But particularly during this fight scene was just very tense and very pacing, so I just want to call that out. But this fight scene was absolutely brutal, just really brutal, and I thought it was really edited and paced excellently well. I love Boba Fett just getting up there and like hitting people in the face. It was all really enjoyable, and I love that there was different beats. I love the sort of jokes with the Empire soldiers, with the stormtroopers, where like they like run in, they like see that they're gonna get killed by Boba Fett, and then just turn around, or like you know flank him, you idiot, and then immediately gets killed, or like the moment where the one trooper like almost barely makes it on the ship. All of those moments were very appreciated and very fun. We also see Mando trying to get the child out of there. That was also a good beat. But then when Boba Fett shows up in his armor and he gets his armor, oh, that was so cool. It is a bit funny, and no offense to the actor, you can tell that he's not as in shape as he was way back in the prequel movies. But he still fits that armor really well, and it's still like, he just still looks like a badass. In fact, I actually really appreciate that he's not in like the best of shape to fit that armor anymore. I appreciate that, showing his age and difference in there, and it wasn't just like, yeah, he looks perfectly pristine clean. I love the grittiness that this show always shows with that, and so I honestly really appreciated that. So I want to be careful. I'm not trying to say that I'm shaming him for being out of shape or anything. That, in fact, that was something I really appreciated about him being in the armor. So really cool sequence there. I love it when he just killing them all and just being an incredible badass, doing the cool guys don't look at explosions bit where he blows up the two ships, and then he just like turns around and is like, I'm not gonna look at that explosion, I'm too cool for that, I'm freaking Boba Fett, I am synonymous with the word cool. Whole sequence, it's like a 15-minute like fight sequence, all very fun. But then we get the Dark Troopers coming down, which were set up earlier on in the season with Moff Gideon sort of looking at them. And they were so creepy and cool, and the look of them was really wonderful, and the sort of like rush to get the child before they got there, but not getting the child in time. Obviously, we knew that was probably going to happen. It wasn't exactly surprising in any way in terms of how the outcome of this episode came off, which is a little, it's not a bad thing. It's just, it is what it is. I don't expect The Mandalorian to be the most crazy in terms of plot stuff, in terms of like the episode by episode plot details. But it was a fun little snatch and grab bit. And it was a bit disappointing to not see the Dark Troopers do anything this episode, but I am sure that they are being set up to, do something at the end of the season. I'm sure the Dark Troopers will come back in the finale and do something really cool, but setting them up here and seeing them be really menacing and terrifying was really just a kind of creepy and really cool to see. I also love Moff Gideon looking all smug when he finally wins and gets the child. And I like the terrifying reminder when Boba Fett goes up in the Slave One, which is so great to see the Slave One again. when he's going up and sees the Empire ship, he's like, oh shoot, the Empire's back, which read to me is like, oh, this is how we're getting to the First Order. We're starting to see those threads, and maybe, this is kind of the elements of those Legends books that we saw with Grand Admiral Thrawn. I mean, if you know, spoilers, but we heard references to Grand Admiral Thrawn last episode, and as we know from the Legends books, the books that are no longer canon, Grand Admiral Thrawn, after the fall of the Empire, sort of gathered all the remnants together and basically put the New Republic on their back feet in those book series. So if maybe they are starting to build up to that, like the Empire's coming back under Grand Moff Tarkin. Sorry, what am I saying? Gideon. Sorry, Grand Moff Tarkin is Grand Moff Tarkin. Am I saying Grand Admiral Thrawn? Oh my gosh, Grand Admiral Thrawn had been name dropped earlier. So as we saw in the Legends books, Grand Admiral Thrawn had been putting the New Republic on their back feet, and so I'm liking that maybe we're starting to see seedings of that storyline being kind of made canonical, that we're starting to see the Empire come back. Maybe they're out there with Grand Admiral Thrawn running them, Moff Gideon sort of being his second in command or close to second in command, and they're building up to that, and then, we'll sort of see that fall apart, and that's what leads to the First Order, the sort of more fragmented group. So that is super interesting, and I'm intrigued to see where that storyline goes, because clearly we're building up to the Empire getting a renewed presence and fighting back on the New Republic, as we started to see seedings of the New Republic here, and Thrawn will obviously be playing some sort of role in that. So that is very, very exciting to see here. But then we sort of get the end of the episode where, Boba Fett says he's going to help Mando. I like that honor and sort of respect that comes between the two of them, and Mando acknowledging that it is Boba Fett's armor. And then we're starting to get this idea that we're going to have our Avengers Assemble moment, because we go back, we see Gina Carano, who, I also have hesitations on Gina Carano for her own silly stuff that's going on Twitter that's just like whatever, frustrating. But I like the character. I find the character kind of interesting, and it's nice to see that she's a marshal. And we also get reference to Bill Burr, and Mando's going to be going, I'm sure next episode will be a little bit of a side quest to go get Bill Burr, but I'm assuming it's all leading up to the final episode, which will probably be this big fight against Moff Gideon, and be that's, like I said, this Avengers Assembles moment where they all come together to fight back Moff Gideon, and we'll probably see Ahsoka and all the other people like come together that we've been building out throughout the whole season, all these little people that we've been meeting along the way. So that'll be very exciting to see that big Avengers Assemble sort of moment in the finale, and I like that we're seeing it out here and bringing back characters like Bill Burr. I always appreciate the world building elements and the recurring characters that are always happening throughout The Mandalorian. It's really nice to see those recurring elements. And then the final sequence, which was super menacing and wonderful, was when Moff Gideon goes to visit the child, Grogu, down in the cell, and Grogu is just dark-siding it out, like killing those beating up those stormtroopers. It was very aggressive and very interesting, and I like that Moff Gideon sort of says stand back, not only to let the Grogu tire himself out, but you also get these like terrifying hints of like, oh, Grogu is falling to the dark side because he has now lost his attachment to the Mandalorian, sort of feeding back into that idea that Ahsoka Tano was talking about last episode. I still disagree with the whole idea of you need to be without attachments to be a Jedi and to be a good person. I still think that's a ridiculously dumb and toxic viewpoint that the Jedi had, that I'm annoyed that Star Wars seems to be leaning into, is like, yeah, that's true, you shouldn't have any attachments. Always thought that was dumb, and I hope that that's not the direction that in fact, I don't really think that that's the direction that I'm going to, but it's clear that Grogu is upset that he's lost the Mandalorian, and that is what's making him go to these sort of dark side sort of elements with the Force chokes and throwing people around. So that was incredibly terrifying to see. But then we get the Darksaber, Rinder the Darksaber. It's cool to see the Darksaber again. For those of you who don't know about the Darksabers, go watch Star Wars Clone Wars. It's the best Star Wars thing out there, and the Darksabers, where that appears, and it's so cool to see it there. And it also comes back in Star Wars Rebels as well, with Sabine, one of my other favorite characters in all of Star Wars. So that scene was properly menacing, very, very cool, and I am just pumped. Like, this episode just had me so excited. Oh, the other thing too that I wanted to mention is I found it kind of funny that Mando found all the like emotional touchstone stuff in the wreckage of his ship after it got blown up by Moff Gideon. He found the ball, which was obviously of emotional weight, and then he found the spear, which is like, yeah, I still need the spear for the story. It makes sense that it would have that at least the spear would have survived. The ball was a little bit iffy. That probably should have actually been blown up and vaporized in that. But I believe the sphere surviving because of it being like, what is it, Deskar or whatever the metal is. But it was just kind of funny. He's like, let me go find my emotional touch pieces that we still need for the plot. This was The Mandalorian running on all cylinders. And it is a lot of fun. It is very exciting. I like seeing all these payoffs. I like seeing the setups for the future, and also these hints towards like larger things that we have hopefully always wanted to see within Star Wars. That's so insanely cool. Also, maybe be building up to, Moff Gideon calls the child Grogu the donor, and sort of maybe that's hints of Snoke or the Emperor, which is fine, but I am just very excited to see these elements all seeded out. So probably by far my favorite episode of The Mandalorian, hands down. But what did you all think? Let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear all your thoughts about this episode. Don't forget to subscribe as well for more Mandalorian reviews. I also have that Rosario Dawson video coming out either later today or earlier tomorrow, so please check that out because I really think it's an important discussion that we need to be having as fans of Star Wars at the moment. So I'll be putting that up probably early Saturday morning. And I also have a Patreon page if you want to help support what I do here. Also, the last thing too, what do you think of this new setup? Did you like this sort of like Jesse After Dark setup? I thought that this was sort of a fun new thing to try out. So I'd really appreciate your thoughts on the new look that I'm just an alt look that I can use from time to time that differentiates me from the other videos that I do. I'd love to hear all that down in the comments below. But beyond all of that, I hope that you, as always, live long and prosper. Thank you to all of my patrons this month, but especially Amanda Ronye Idanya, Catherine Lambeth, Ashley Ellen Bokikio, Miranda Janelle, Eli Bergmoss, Ashlyn Solstice, Michael D., Greg Gillum, Stephen Kleinard, Ulysses the Pagan, Randy Thompson, Munir Amlani, Chamomile T., Stephen Schuhart, Wellington Marcus, Boyd and Mary Beth Earl, Wayne Twitchell, Ish the Mad, Buttoneer, Roar, Christina Dalliance, Dominic Noble, John Steele, Michael Beam. She sells seashells by the seashore of Bajor. William Stewart, Gavin Robinson, The Sir Spence, BBD, Hannah F., Nathan Olson, Jason Knott, Andrew Jorgensen, Chris Brown, Jasmine, Maeve, Bree Beecher, Sabraxis, Skylar Gray, Nathan Steele, Jane Packard and Chloe Dollar, Wen Dizzle Bizzle, Gretchen Badger, Geek Filter, Bush, Celestial Dawn, Din, Sarah Bastam, Polly Mina, Jacob Tovar, Piston Twisted Garage, Lily, Jean Mithun, Andrew Lamori, Lysa, Zone 1 Librarian, Michael Hardy, Corey Honkanen, and KT Dunn. Thank you so much to all of you. You're quite literally making my dreams come true, so I cannot tell you how thankful I am.